A lot of the time when people look at the element of world building in film, they tend to narrow in on the big examples, giant franchises like Tolkien's Middle-earth series or the entire Star Wars saga. You also see examples in standalone films like Children of Men or Blade Runner, which in a few years will be part of a franchise, but for the sake of argument, Blade Runner on its own is pretty great at building a world. Although I do love all of those movies, my favorite example of world building is Fantastic Mr. Fox. The film's director, Wes Anderson, employs such a healthy and innovative set of techniques that literally bring his stories off the page and onto the screen. Before we go any further, let's put a definition on world building, because there's a lot more than just building a set and filming it. So the definition that we are going to be using is the ability to develop an imaginary setting with an atmosphere that helps bring viewers into the story. And with that out of the way, I'd like to warn you that I will be discussing elements from this film in its entirety, so if you have not seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, make sure you watch it before checking out this video. One of the most important techniques that he uses is his tone. On the surface, this may not seem like a very important part of world building. It seems like they shouldn't even be connected. Yet, as it often turns out in the filmmaking process, everything is important. The decisions that are made when writing the script in terms of tone have a big impact on what every aspect of the finished product looks like, and tone is without a doubt a big part of that. What tone does is allow for the director to give themselves boundaries. With a lighthearted tone, the director can get away with a lot. However, when the movie is more serious, then they're definitely restricted. When this movie is there to entertain you and not make greater statements about society or leave you perplexed for days, then the director has much bigger boundaries, and that's what Wes Anderson is always able to do. Because realism was left at the door in most Wes Anderson movies, the typical rules that guide the world that we live in go right out the window, and that is what we see when it comes to creating this world. This movie's world has near unlimited potential. If you wanted to flood a foxhole, of course you could do that. If you wanted to excavate a mountain, sure, why not? And if you wanted to blow up that mountain, then that would be perfectly reasonable as well. Although the movie has a very lighthearted tone, it is still centered in reality. All these events that are happening could happen, but they probably wouldn't. This allows the audience to be invested in the story, but they still know what they're watching is absurd. Characters are another important part to world building. Whenever you watch a movie, you're probably seeing a place that you've never been to, and almost certainly watching an event that you have never done. So having characters guide you through the world is very important. This happens from the very opening scene when Mr. Fox guides Mrs. Fox and consequently guides us through one of his heists. After that, Mr. Fox talks to Badger, who tells us about the three farmers or antagonists of the story. It's simple, it gets to the point, and it works. Throughout the entire film, we have characters guiding us through the story and the world like a maze. Characters talk directly to the camera to help hurry along the story, and that's because they can get away with this because of the light-hearted tone. On top of that, we also really like the characters. They are funny, they have relatable problems, and it is very easy for us to see ourselves in their shoes. Because of this, the audience places themselves in the story with the characters, and it really makes them feel like they are a part of the world. The actual set that was built, or the literal world, was built by dozens of incredibly talented people. All of the puppets were specifically hand-painted and crafted. In fact, almost everything in this movie was real. Nothing was computer animated, but instead enormous sets were constructed, the backgrounds were these giant paintings. Everything you saw in this movie was real. Everything you saw was a tangible object shot by a real camera. This isn't tricking anyone to think that these foxes are real people, but when the human eye looks at a tangible object, we are able to detect that it is something real. We know we are looking at puppets, but we know that we're looking at actual puppets, not computer-generated puppets, and it makes it feel more alive. Movements were supplemented with computer graphics, but everything we see actually exists in this world. Cinematography plays a big role in allowing the viewers into the world. Most of the shots in the movie are long and steady. This helps the viewers feel like they are with the characters trying to pull off a heist or just save the family. At the same time, the cinematography is, well, very cinematic. It doesn't try and hide the fact that this is a movie like you see in some documentaries. There is unique framing and a lot of emphasis on symmetry, and because of this, it's very inviting. It feels like a world you want to be part of. It's fun, it's somewhat relaxing, and incredibly well made. Visually, it's pleasant to look at, and all around leads to a very fun viewing experience. The The way that this film was actually recorded also helps to create this inviting sense to it. In most animated movies, when the actors are recording their voiceover, they're usually in a padded studio to try and get the best and most crisp audio as possible. In this film, however, we saw actors go on locations with microphones to get a much more natural sound. This is something that may go unnoticed unless you're looking for it, but regardless, it adds an extra layer of depth to help bring people into this world even more. Fantastic Mr. Fox is one of my favorite movies out there. It's so much fun and is so immersive and does an excellent job at bringing the viewers into this world. These are just a few of the many ways that Wes Anderson builds up this atmosphere from beginning to end. It feels like you are there with Mr. Fox and the rest of the group. Make sure you drop a comment and tell me what you think about this movie. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe so you can join me next time when we discuss the film Shame. That video is going to be on the right of the screen, is going to be up next week. On the left is my dissection of The Hateful Eight. Check that video out if you haven't seen it, and until next week, thanks for watching.